beneath the ancient city of Prague, where cobblestones whisper the secrets of centuries. Cryptographer Elena Novak descends into the forgotten archives, unaware that what she is about to uncover will change history itself. A single cipher, hidden for hundreds of years, lies waiting in the shadows, a key to a conspiracy that has shaped empires, silenced scholars, and killed to remain buried. But as symbols turn to warnings and allies become suspects, Elena realizes that decoding the past may cost her everything, even her life. The cold stone steps of the archive spiraled downward into darkness as Elena Novak adjusted the strap of her satchel and took a slow breath. The muffled sounds of the modern city above faded with each step, replaced by the damp scent of earth and the faint mustiness of forgotten history. Her boots echoed softly against the uneven cobblestones. The narrow corridor ahead, dimly illuminated by a flickering overhead light that struggled against decades of neglect. She reached the heavy iron door that marked the entrance to the secret archives beneath Prague, a place few had ever seen and even fewer had permission to enter. With a careful hand, Elena produced the worn key given to her by Martin Dvorak, the archivist who guarded this subterranean labyrinth. The lock creaked in protest as she turned it, the door swinging inward with a groan that seemed to awaken the silence. Inside, rows upon rows of ancient shelves stretched into the shadows, laden with dusty tomes, brittle scrolls, and countless leather-bound volumes whose contents had been whispered about in academic circles but never fully revealed. Elena's eyes adjusted to the gloom as she switched on her flashlight, the beam cutting through centuries of dust motes dancing in the stale air. Martin was waiting by a cluttered wooden table, his wire-rimmed glasses perched on his nose as he leafed through a ledger. "Elena," he said, his voice low and steady, "I thought you might be interested in this." He reached beneath the table and produced a small, leather-bound manuscript, its cover embossed with faded, cryptic symbols. Elena took it reverently, the weight of the object heavier than expected. "Where did this come from?" she asked, eyes scanning the aged parchment. "Discovered during a recent excavation beneath the old city hall," Martin explained. "No one has been able to decipher it. It's been locked away here for decades, awaiting someone with the right skills." She nodded, a flicker of excitement igniting in her chest. "Then it's my job now." Settling at the table, Elena carefully opened the manuscript. The pages were yellowed and fragile, the ink faded but still legible. Swirling ciphers and strange glyphs decorated the margins, interspersed with what appeared to be archaic Latin phrases. Her fingers traced the patterns, recognizing the complexity of the code, a puzzle centuries in the making. Hours passed unnoticed as she worked, the outside world slipping away. The deeper she delved, the more the manuscript seemed to whisper secrets of a clandestine order, a medieval cult whose influence, the text suggested, had persisted into modern times, woven into the fabric of political power. A sudden creak echoed from the far end of the archives, pulling Elena from her reverie. She glanced up, heart pounding, scanning the dim corridors for movement. Silence answered. Was it merely the building settling, or had someone else descended into this underworld? Shaking off the unease, Elena returned to the manuscript. Her mind raced with possibilities. If the clues were true, this cipher was not just an academic curiosity. It was a key to a hidden history that could rewrite everything she thought she knew about power and secrecy. The night wore on, and with each line decoded, the shadows deepened. Outside, the city of Prague slept unaware of the storm that had quietly begun beneath its cobblestones. As dawn approached, Elena leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. Her eyes burned from the flickering lamplight, but her resolve was unshaken. This was only the beginning. Somewhere in these ancient codes lay a truth that someone desperately wanted to keep buried, and now Elena Novak was the only one who could bring it to light. But as the first rays of morning sun filtered through the narrow window, casting long shadows across the archives, an unseen watcher took note of her presence, setting in motion a chain of events that would plunge her into a world of secrets, betrayal, and danger beyond anything she had imagined. The Cipher's discovery was not just a revelation, it was a summons to a battle fought in silence and shadows, where knowledge was the deadliest weapon of all. The cavernous space beneath the city of Prague was cloaked in shadows, the air thick with the scent of old parchment and damp stone. Elena Novak sat hunched over a weathered wooden table, the soft glow of a single lamp illuminating the yellowed manuscript that lay before her. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, strands clinging to her damp forehead as she leaned closer, eyes sharp and intent. The silence around her was punctuated only by the faint scratching of her pen and the occasional distant drip of water echoing through the labyrinthine archives. Each symbol on the manuscript was a puzzle piece, woven into a tapestry of cryptic codes that Elena had spent years studying, but this was unlike anything she had encountered before. The script was archaic, layered with an intricate cipher that hinted at knowledge centuries old. Her fingers traced the looping glyphs, mapping their patterns, as she whispered the old code-breaking mantra her mentor had once taught her. Every code has a key. Every key unlocks a truth. Elena paused, her breath catching as the pieces began to fall into place. The first segment of the manuscript revealed names and dates that bore uncanny resemblance to recent political upheavals. References to shadowy councils, clandestine meetings held in forgotten chambers, and veiled threats masked in allegory. Her pulse quickened. This was no mere historical curiosity. It was a message, a warning perhaps, from centuries past, echoing into the present. The words on the page seemed to reach out, pulling her deeper into a labyrinth not just of stone and parchment, but of secrets and danger. She jotted down notes feverishly, the thrill of discovery mingling with a creeping unease that gnawed at her resolve. Suddenly, a faint noise broke the stillness, the soft creak of footsteps echoing down a distant corridor. Elena froze, every muscle tensed, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She was not alone. The silence returned, but the unease remained, a chilling reminder that in this game of shadows, eyes were always watching. Her mind raced. Was it a guard, a rival scholar, or something more sinister? The manuscript's warnings seemed to bleed into her reality. The conspiracy hinted at on these fragile pages was no longer an academic pursuit. It was a dangerous truth that someone wanted to keep buried, determined not to be intimidated. Elena returned to her cipher wheel, a device she had crafted herself, worn smooth from years of use. Slowly, she rotated its dials, aligning letters and numbers until a hidden message emerged. A phrase that sent a shiver down her spine. The Watchers guard the throne of lies. The weight of the words settled heavily on her shoulders. The manuscript was a map, and she had just uncovered the first key. But with knowledge came risk, and Elena knew that her every move was now under scrutiny. As the night deepened, Elena's thoughts swirled. The shadows clung tighter, and the line between friend and foe blurred. Yet, amidst the growing paranoia, her determination burned brighter. She would follow the cipher wherever it led, even if it meant walking into the heart of darkness itself. The air in the subterranean archives was thick with the scent of dust and ancient paper, the dim lighting casting long shadows across towering shelves laden with leather-bound volumes. Elena Novak adjusted the strap of her satchel, the weight of her recent discoveries pressing heavily on her mind. The cold stone walls seemed to close in with every step. She had been here before, but today was different. Today, she was not alone. A soft shuffle echoed from the far end of the chamber, and Elena's sharp eyes caught the movement before the figure emerged from the shadows. Martin Dvorak, the archivist whose reputation preceded him, stepped into the faint glow of the overhead lamp. His wiry frame seemed almost spectral in the low light, glasses perched precariously on the bridge of his nose. "I wasn't expecting you so soon," Martin said, his voice low and measured, yet carrying an undercurrent of cautious welcome. Elena nodded, forcing a smile she didn't quite feel. "The manuscript I found. It's unlike anything I've seen. I need access to deeper records, the ones not available to the public." Martin's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "That's a dangerous path, Miss Novak. The archives you're asking about are restricted for a reason." "Then it's all the more reason to look," Elena replied firmly. "These aren't just old codes and forgotten texts. There's something more, something that ties the past to the present in ways I can't yet explain." He studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Very well, follow me." The archivist led her through a narrow passageway concealed behind a false wall, the air growing cooler and heavier the deeper they ventured. The faint metallic scent of old iron filled the air as Martin produced a heavy key, its teeth worn smooth from years of use. The lock clicked open with a resonant clang, and Martin pushed open a thick iron door. Inside, rows of ancient manuscripts and scrolls rested on shelves carved directly from the stone walls. Faint glyphs and cryptic symbols seemed to shimmer in the flickering light of a solitary oil lamp. Elena's breath caught as she stepped into the vault, feeling as if she had entered a sanctum where time itself was held captive. "These documents," Martin whispered, "are the keepers of Prague's darkest secrets. The cult you're investigating, their shadow stretches longer than most suspect." Elena approached a fragile folio, carefully opening it to reveal pages dense with encoded marginalia. Her fingers traced the faded ink, decoding fragments that hinted at rituals and allegiances spanning centuries. Each deciphered word wove a tighter web of intrigue, binding the medieval cult to the present day's political undercurrents. Hours slipped by unnoticed as Elena lost herself in the texts. The labyrinth outside seemed a distant echo, but an oppressive weight settled over her. The silence was punctuated only by the soft scratch of her pen as she made notes and the occasional creak of old wood. Suddenly, a faint noise reverberated from the corridor, a subtle shift, like a whisper in the dark. Elena and Martin exchanged a glance, their silent communication loaded with unspoken warnings. The flickering lamp cast distorted shadows that danced menacingly along the walls, and an icy chill crept into the room. "We're not alone," Martin murmured. Elena's heart pounded as the sensation of unseen eyes watching them grew stronger. Every instinct screamed caution, yet the promise of the truth held her rooted in place. The shadows in the archives were no longer just relics of the past. They were alive with danger and deceit. "We have to move carefully," Elena said, her voice steady despite the racing of her pulse. "If they know what we've found, there's no telling what they'll do to stop us." Martin nodded grimly, pulling the iron door closed behind them. The heavy lock sealed their sanctuary, but also felt like a barrier against a world increasingly hostile and uncertain. Emerging back into the wider corridors, Elena's thoughts swirled with the revelations from the manuscripts. The cult's enduring presence beneath Prague was no myth, and its tendrils were far more entrenched than she had feared. Every step forward was a step deeper into a labyrinth of secrets where trust was scarce and betrayal lurked in every shadow. Her journey was only beginning, but already the stakes had never been higher. In the city of 100 spires, the past and present collided beneath the surface, and Elena Novak was at the heart of the storm. The low hum of the city filtered down through the narrow streets of Prague as Elena Novak stepped cautiously into the shadowed entrance of the underground cafe. The faint scent of damp stone and old wood mingled with the sharp aroma of freshly brewed coffee, grounding her in the moment despite the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. She pulled her dark coat tighter around her, the fabric damp from the evening drizzle that had begun moments ago. The cafe was tucked beneath the bustling streets, a haven for those who sought refuge from the glaring daylight and prying eyes above. Its walls were lined with faded photographs and shelves of dog-eared books, the air thick with whispered secrets and quiet conversations. Elena chose a secluded corner, her sharp eyes scanning the room as she settled into the cracked leather seat, her fingers drumming nervously on the tabletop. Minutes later, the door creaked open, and a figure entered with purposeful strides. Jakub Mareka, name she had heard in whispered circles, a man cloaked in shadows and half-truths. His rugged appearance was softened only slightly by the tired lines etched across his face, evidence of years spent navigating the treacherous world of intelligence. His eyes, always alert, flicked around the room before landing on her. Without a word, he slid into the seat opposite her. "You're late," Elena said, her voice steady but edged with suspicion. Jakub smirked, a flash of dry humor cutting through the tension. "In my line of work, timing is everything. Besides, I wanted to make sure no one was watching." She studied him carefully. Trust was a luxury Elena could ill afford, especially when the labyrinthian conspiracy she was unraveling had already claimed so many lives. Yet, here was a man offering help, tactical support, and perhaps a lifeline. "What do you want?" she asked. Jakub leaned forward, producing a slim tablet from his coat. The screen flickered to life, casting a pale blue glow over his face. He swiped through intercepted communications, cryptic messages linking powerful government figures to shadowy cults. "I've been tracking these for months," he explained. "When I heard about your work in the archives, I realized we might be chasing the same ghosts." Elena's eyes narrowed as she absorbed the information. The depth of the conspiracy was staggering, the threads weaving through history and politics with chilling precision. Jakub's warnings about unknown watchers and imminent danger echoed the paranoia she had felt creeping in since her first discovery. "Why help me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because," Jakub replied, "someone has to stop this before it's too late. And I think that someone is you." A silence fell between them, thick with unspoken fears and tentative hope. Elena's mind raced. Could she afford to trust this man, whose past was as murky as the secrets they sought to uncover? Yet the alternative was solitude in a world that was closing in around her. She finally nodded, a small, resolute movement. "All right, but no secrets." Jakub smiled faintly. "No secrets." As they stepped out of the cafe into the rain-soaked streets, the city lights shimmered through the droplets, casting a surreal glow on the cobblestones. The partnership was forged, fragile yet vital. In the heart of Prague, beneath the watchful eyes of history's shadows, Elena Novak took her first step from isolated scholar to hunted operative. The night air was thick with foreboding, but also the promise of revelation. And as the storm gathered overhead, so too did the forces that would shape her destiny. The Web Titans. Elena Novak sat hunched over her battered oak desk, the faint glow of a single desk lamp casting a pool of light over the scattered parchments and digital devices arrayed before her. Outside, the muted sounds of Prague at night, a distant siren, the occasional clatter of footsteps on cobblestones filtered through the cracked window. But inside her cramped apartment, silence reigned. The silence was a fragile veil, one that Elena knew could be shattered at any moment. Her fingers traced the cryptic symbols she had painstakingly decoded over the past days. Each fragment of the cipher peeled back a layer of a truth so vast and insidious that it threatened to unravel everything she thought she knew about power and history. The latest message was more explicit than any before, a coded reference to a high-ranking government official whose name was veiled in allegory but unmistakable to Elena's trained eye. She read the passage again, her breath catching as the implications settled in. The cult's tendrils, ancient and malignant, had woven themselves into the very fabric of modern governance. Her hands trembled slightly, a mixture of adrenaline and dread coursing through her veins. This was no longer an academic pursuit. It was a battle for survival. A sudden noise outside, a faint scraping, a shadow passing beneath the window, snapped Elena from her reverie. Her heart hammered as she rose cautiously, moving to peer through the thin curtain. The street was deserted, slick with rain from an earlier downpour, reflections of street lamps shimmering in puddles. But the feeling of being watched clung to her like a second skin. She moved quickly to secure the window before retreating to the center of the room. The shadows in her apartment seemed to stretch and twist, the walls closing in. She was not alone in her discovery. The conspiracy was aware, and it was closing in. Her phone vibrated sharply on the desk. A message from Jakub Marek. "Meet me at the usual place, now." Jakub was her reluctant ally, a pragmatist with a past as murky as the secrets they chased. Despite her deep-seated distrust of anyone with intelligence ties, she knew she needed him. Grabbing her coat and a small satchel, Elena slipped out into the rain-soaked night. The streets of Prague were a labyrinth of history and shadows, but tonight they felt more like a trap. Every footstep echoed too loudly. Every glance over her shoulder revealed a flicker of movement. The city's ancient stones seemed to whisper warnings she couldn't afford to ignore. Jakub waited in a narrow alley, his rugged figure barely visible under the brim of a soaked cap. Without a word, he grasped her arm, pulling her into the relative safety of the shadows. His eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the street ahead. "They're watching you," Jakub said quietly, voice low but urgent. "You've stirred something dangerous." Elena swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling like lead in her stomach. "I found proof. They're involved people at the highest levels." Jakub nodded grimly. "Then they won't stop until they silence you." Together, they moved swiftly through the city's back alleys, evading unseen pursuers. The constant threat of betrayal gnawed at Elena, a reminder that trust was a currency she could ill afford to spend. Back at a safe house cluttered with maps, encrypted notes, and hastily scrawled theories, the pair pored over the decoded messages. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows, mirroring the darkness creeping into their lives. "We need to move faster," Elena said, her voice taut. "If they're this close, every moment counts." Jakub's jaw tightened. "I'll organize protection. But you have to be ready. This isn't just about secrets anymore. It's about survival." Elena nodded, steeling herself against the rising tide of fear and uncertainty. The web was tightening, and she was caught in its center. With each new revelation, the stakes climbed higher, and the line between ally and enemy blurred. As dawn threatened the horizon, Elena's resolve hardened. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. But as the first light seeped through the windows, a chilling realization settled over her. In this deadly game of secrets and betrayal, No one was truly safe, not even her. And the conspiracy was watching.